Hey everybody, welcome to another rousing morning. It's 12:49 and I didn't intend to start at 12:49 in the morning. I'm usually but yeah, an hour plus into my show, right? But yeah, duty calls. By the way, this is CCIG Tiger Rugby. They're in Hong Kong for the Hong Kong Sevens, playing as I speak. Okay, root for 'em. Anyway, let me tweet this out. And move forward with everything. Hey, everybody. Hey, Barry. How are you? Once I tweet this out, I'm going to open up with, hold on a second, YouTube HQ, in Oakland Raiders, Las Vegas, NFL Stadium bonds, and then St. Louis lawsuit. Yeah, and I just hashtag live stream. Okay, and then hashtag NFL, right? And hashtag Raiders. Okay. Hashtag Oakland. Hashtag Las Vegas. Okay. And for good measure, another hashtag I never used before. Ooh, there. And that's on. It's on now. All right. Wow. Zoomed up real quick. Hey, everybody. All right. We got to talk, but not about what you think first. We got to talk about the YouTube tragedy, okay? And that's what I'm going to call it, the YouTube tragedy. Horrible. And the reason why we have to talk about this before we talk about anything else is because a number of you have talked to me, just John Santos just texted sad, very sad, extremely sad. And I'm worried about people. I haven't heard back from Michelle Cancelier. Michelle is my YouTube partner channel representative. I've sent her an email. I haven't heard back from her. I sent her a text. I haven't heard back from her. I don't know what's going on. I hope she's not the person that that was injured. Okay, I haven't heard anything. Maybe she's on vacation for spring break or something like that at YouTube, or maybe she maybe unbeknownst to me, she shifted jobs, right? I don't know. But my mother and I were watching the preliminary reports, and she said this. She said, "You know what? I'll bet." She said, "I'll bet somebody got upset because YouTube cut off their money." All right, and Joseph Benzman says, "Evening, saw your video earlier. Hope anyone you know who could have been at the shooting today are safe." That's what I'm trying to find out, you know. But my mother called it. She really did. All right. It's interesting. We started off with 19 people, but I think once they figured I wasn't going to be crying and whining about the Raiders or whatever, they dropped off. Hilarious. Nope, sorry. Anyway. I'm writing this because these two events, this is how I think spiritually, these two events happened. Well, these three events happened on the same day. The Raiders bonds passed in Las Vegas. Then we had the YouTube tragedy, and we had just around that, we had the St. Louis news where their writ, the NFL writ failed. So now all 85 defendants are going to be deposed, okay, which is huge news. Now you would say, how do all these fit together? Hey, Donis, how you doing? How do all these fit together? I'll tell you. and again, this goes back to my 83-year-old mom and her very wise observation, where she said, you can't, she said, these days people try to screw each other over for money. And you could certainly say that the Raiders you place the Raiders in that category. Okay. That's how it looks. I mean, as Christian Giuliani said it, using the public money to basically make millionaires richer. All right. And same with the St. Louis case with the Rams. And then, of course, with YouTube, we've had this problem of the YouTube apocalypse and then YouTube's horrible response to it. And yet they take guys and gals, but they take guys like Logan Paul and prop him up with press releases to make him think he's more popular than he really is, when a lot of people never heard of him. They did that with PewDiePie to counter that. A lot of people have had their views stamped, including the Raiders. It's funny because remember that Mark Davis video that I made? It's funny to watch the Raiders quite literally try to chase me and get better views than I do from the owners meeting, and they don't do it. Because of YouTube's overall ecosphere of overpopulation, the adpocalypse, oversensitive algorithms, and if you don't know how to adjust to them, you're sunk. Hey, John Marks, how you doing? Okay. I'm just going to say this. People have to watch how they treat each other today. Because even though my mom called it, I was thinking, no, I couldn't be a disgruntled YouTuber. And guess what? It was a disgruntled YouTuber. What is her name? Her name is Yasmin Agdam. Yasmin Agdam. Never heard of her. But guess what? A bit ago, they yanked her. I just found this out, but I couldn't figure out the date. They yanked her channel down. I remember the one time that my YouTube channel was yanked. That was late 2008, and it was accidental. I hadn't done anything wrong. Someone had quite literally in 2008, someone had quite literally pushed the wrong button. Fortunately, I had, thanks to Hunter Walk, who's now a venture capitalist, but Hunter worked for Google at the time. I made the point to Hunter Walk that, hey, I got this network of blogs on Blogger, which is a platform like WordPress, right? And I showed him, I said that the same thing that I post on sfgate.com, the website of the San Francisco Chronicle, that gets on Google News, I said, how come that can't be put on Google News with a Blogger blog? And he said, you know what? You're right. I'll bring it up in our meeting. And about 4 days later, my blog, which was then called Zinni Zeitgeist, was a Google News blog. And this was in spite of the fact that the party line of Google at the time was that a blogger blog couldn't be on Google News because of the permalink, all right? And so a permalink, all right? I'll get to your questions in a second, all right? Richard, I'll get to your question in a second. All right. But again, because Richard Hike, you're a contributor, so really want your attention on this particular deal right here, and then I'll address your question because it's a good one. But back to my point. Because my blog was on Google News, and I knew how to write, and I know how to write copy that quite literally pushes more well-known publications like the New York Times out of the way, or the New York Daily News or the Washington Post out of the way. I'm not, kid you not. I wrote a blog post critical of YouTube and Google, such that when you typed YouTube, you found what I wrote first, because I was like, how could you do this? My channel, what the frick happened? All right.
Sorry, I don't understand.
That's, you know what that is? That's actually Google Home. But at any rate, I was flabbergasted. And of course, Hunter Walk informed me that Google didn't appreciate that, but they fixed it in 30 minutes. But I remember that feeling. It was like someone had ripped my heart out. It really was. It was like, it was bad, okay? It was bad, all right? It was like somebody went, whoop. And I felt cold and naked and angry. So if I felt like that then, I mean, geez, I can imagine what Yasmin Agdam felt like to a degree. But to get on and put on a 30-year-old woman, put on body armor, make the trek from Southern California to San Bruno, go to YouTube headquarters and do what she did, that's a step, and I was crying earlier, that I can't imagine anybody taking. I just can't. But you've got to think about it in the context of how badly the Raiders have treated fans. Like Mark Davis getting the face of people at training camp and arguments and everything else, right? And this almost like they're burning the ships, or Mark Bedane today saying this has been a decades in the making, which is ridiculous. It's like, what, decades of bad faith, negotiations. Or your Raiders cannot expect people to be their fans and treat them poorly and then heap on them, high season ticket costs and everything without some reaction by somebody out there whose button may be pushed just so they're wacko, okay? Today should be a day, a red letter day in American society. We have to be nice to each other. We're not nice to each other. And you want the ultimate result? I give you Yasmin Agdam. People are focused on, oh, she's a woman or Middle Eastern or whatever. No, she was a pissed off YouTuber. I never thought in my entire life, as Barry Lee just asked, so the user was a disgruntled YouTuber, a YouTube user. Yes, she was. I still, I put this around my head, I'm like, wow. And they had terminated her account for multiple violations of the channel. This has happened before to some actually really very popular YouTubers, like a guy named not Mr. President. His name was Mr. Pregnant. Mr. Pregnant was a brother who had dreadlocks. If you can imagine Marshawn Lynch putting on huge, fang teeth and that sort of thing, or like buck teeth, right? And then pulling his hair forward and everything else, you got that's Mr. Pregnant. And Mr. Pregnant made some videos that were, just by the way he presented them himself, gross. And he was trying to make a point by doing it. I kind of admit I forgot what the point was. But I remember that his reaction to YouTube shutting down his channel, so he had another channel, was to basically, go to his YouTube base and say, hey, help me. And he got his channel reinstated. That's what you commonly do. He knowingly played with the lines. That's what got him the views. Mr. Pregnant was a YouTube pioneer. But by contrast, for Yasmin Agdam, and Yasmin, were she still alive, would say, I wasn't doing anything wrong. I did workout video. She did some videos that are kind of sexy, right? But there was something about them. I don't know. I think what happened was that in order to get banned like that, you have to get flagged by somebody. Someone out there had it in for her, and they kept flagging her. And the system should not be allowed to work that way, because what happens is that person flags, but then the humans look at it, and the humans make a decision at YouTube. And it seemed that they made a decision that more often than not did not go in her favor. And she snapped. That's another generation. What I'm talking about in terms of people like Mr. President or myself, we're the first generation of YouTubers, okay? But this younger generation, you can't treat them like that. Similarly, there are a number of examples in society where you have to be careful how you treat people. The Raiders and the NFL, they have to be careful how they handle their fan base with relocation. They have to be nice to each other. They have to be nice. You can't be nice. You can't be nice. Then don't be anything at all. That's the lesson today. Okay, you got to be nice. It goes back to, I mean, this whole jazz about political correctness and all this. You know what? Being a lady and a gentleman is a big deal, and it's an honorable thing to want to be. It really is. Okay. Now, for example, I wrote Mark Bidet in an email today. I'll read to you what I wrote in the context of what I'm talking about, because I believe it's worth sharing. Of course, I don't know that I write anything that's not worth sharing. But this is what I wrote, and it was like this. And of course, Mark being Mark, he hasn't responded back because, you know, the Raiders want to make everything personal, whereas with me, it's not. I wrote, congratulations on an amazing achievement. I would be intellectually dishonest if I did not say congratulations on an amazing achievement. While I am extremely concerned with the deal's base on a downward trending visitor rate and with the soil conditions on the site, this moment must be marked as a milestone in Raiders history. The raison d'etre for my work has been the feeling that the Raiders have consistently disrespected what I was capable of doing in the way of creating a viable stadium plan that could be used in Oakland, Las Vegas. Yes, I did say that. I told Eric Grubman in late 2016 that I did not at all mind if the Raiders used my plan for Las Vegas, but you did not meet with me. I hold that the Raiders have not reached their true franchise value. That's why I told Mark that I carved out $2 billion for the organization in 2015 in the plan he asked me to create. That said, I hold that Oakland is worlds better as market center of a region that arguably rules the world. I will continue to monitor the stadium project. It is most problematical. But I have to say congratulations for getting to this point. I remain, best to you, go Bears. We both went the cow. Okay, that's how I handle things. I want to make sure that it's not personal, even though I haven't been treated that way. Okay, so hey, as John Marks just put it, we were nice to the Raiders, the NFL, and the Raiders gave us the middle finger. Yep. And Richard Hike says, break time is just about over. I'll catch you all on the replay. Oh, Richard, you asked a question about, let me go back to your question. I apologize, Richard. Hopefully I didn't miss you. But he says, I watched the video. Oh, I'm sorry. Richard says, was that story about Adelson biting the Raiders an April Fool's joke? It was April Fool's story, not a joke. And it was based on some very real strands. I mean, for example, the main one is that Adelson's publication, the Review Journal, has stood as a cheerleader for the stadium project to this point. Okay, a cheerleader. All right. And that's in it, after dissing Mark Davis and the Raiders, and then spending about almost 4 months putting out bad information about the stadium project. Then they flipped in February, March, April, May. They flipped after what happened was they after the deal got passed by the NFL in May. So you have February, March, April, right? May. Okay. Right after that, then the Review Journal flipped and they became cheerleaders. That's Adelson's publication. I don't care what anyone says. If he wants something written a certain way, if he's interested in something, he's going to let them know. The editor has enough of a good sense to figure out what his owner wants to not piss the owner off, so the owner has to look over his shoulder and say, what was that? He's got other things to do around the world. So, no. But if Mr. Adelson wanted to take a shot, he would. But then, even more, John Ralston, the locally popular political columnist in Nevada, expert in Nevada politics, was silent. And instructed, you can tell by the content, his writers to avoid the Raiders situation. Why? He has donors. Some of his donors are people like Steve Sisolak, Laxalt, a number of politicians. He has got a huge list of donors that have contributed from $300,000, I think, in some cases, to $30. And somewhere in there, you always say, follow the money, right? Somewhere in there, he's staying out of the way. In fact, I was wondering if he checked in. Let me get your comments. Donut says, I say we keep the team's colors. And John Mark says, John Ralston was a former Oakland Invaders head coach. Oh, he was, but that was John with the H. I think John Ralston spells his name without the H. John Marks also says, Mackerel Raiders, and he has said in the past he probably won't make a trip to Vegas for the Raiders. Yeah, I have said that. I don't. It's not on my to-do list. It's on my to-do list to go to Vegas, of course. But look, I haven't even been to the Falcons Stadium yet, and I'd love to go there. I haven't been to the Cowboys Stadium, and it opened. I'm dying to go there. But if I were dying to go there, I'm gone, right? Let's see, the last new stadium I went to, it's been a while. No, I was Super Bowl, Levi Stadium. Yeah. And it took me a while to get there. So I'm not exactly hunting down to get to a new stadium. If you go to Vegas, you can't miss the thing if it gets built. I am still, just because this got approved, the money's coming, yeah. But again, here we go. The Raiders have this now ability to stick their head in a noose of a bad deal. I'll put it just like that, okay? Bad stuff, all right? As Barry Lee just wrote, for Zinni, it's his mom first, then football. Actually, mom, then football takes those. There are other things in life, all right? Other things. Barry Lee says, unfortunately, Mark Davis made it personal by not giving you the respect. He did. And so did Bedain of late, But they made it personal with a lot of people. They did it with Greg, Godfather Grizz. And when Davis came up to him at training camp and they had that little match, they did it with Dr. Death. They've done it with a number of people. Okay? They've done it with a number of people. And I mean, just personally getting in the face and arguing with the people that they thought weren't on their agenda. That's bad. That is really, really bad, okay? As Dean Willie says, Raiders are a .1 organization. Who's Your Daddy said, yes. Yeah, Ralston's the Nevada Independent isn't really so independent. Yeah, no. In fact, let's check, though, in fairness to John Ralston, and see if he's put any stuff up there today. I will have to say that I am, this is just the way that I'm wired. My mom thinks it's a bad thing, but I really, I'm proud of Mark Bedain, who was named president, and in 2014 he was given a difficult job, a series of difficult assignments, and so far he's handled them well, I just feel like this stepladder of success has a weak foundation, though. I really do. And again, the Raiders, as I said the night before, the Raiders have built up a well of bad karma. Okay, so let's see what's happening here. Top story at the Nevada Independent: arbitrator sides with Clark County Teachers Union in a lengthy contract battle. Raiders. UNLV President Lynn Jessup leaving university blames departure on personal and professional attacks by regents. Wow. Clark County Commission proposal would lead to de facto moratorium on new marijuana dispensaries. About last week, Rosen fundraises in California. Sandoval appoints members to school safety task force. So again, nothing about the bond issue, nothing about the politics behind it. So, Ralston has just stayed silent. No one is tweeting anything. Nothing. I mean, they have, oh, wait a minute. Here it is. Riley Snyder did one. Team Sisolak goes after Nevada governor opponent Jen Giuliani over a vote against Steve calling her, this is interesting. Team Steve Sisolak goes after Nevada governor opponent Jen Giuliani over a vote against stadium bonding, calling her hypocritical, and references 2007 story about her backing of a 50% property tax break through green businesses in the Las Vegas Suns, okay? And it says it's hypocritical that Jen Giuliani campaigned to attack Steve for a job-creating project when Jen Giuliani led the charge in a $900 million giveaway by pulling a number out of thin air. Steve makes decisions based on how projects will create jobs and boost our economy. And that was by someone by the name of Christina Amnestoy. So the war is on over the stadium, and then we get some responses on Twitter by Barb Solish, don't know who she is, says, an unnecessary break with a $900 million price tag based on a number she pulled out of thin air. And it says, because even the recipients said it wasn't needed, even if the incentives weren't available, we would have had this building green. Now, see, here's the problem. No one knows what they're talking about. So that's so esoteric. But what people do know is, hey, look, tax dollars went to a stadium and we're suffering. That other stuff, it's kind of like, huh, what? And then Bonnie Purnell says, replying to Chris wins on that point. And I just am reading this, okay? It says Chris wins on Chris Giuliani. So basically, Chris Giuliani won the battle. Score one for Giuliani. Yeah, because this comes in the middle of, this comes in the middle of an election year. I just wondered where Dan Schwartz was with all that. I'm against the stadium. But again, he is a friend of Sean Nadelson, okay? So he's a friend, all right? So there you go. There's something. Maybe it'll come out later in an article tomorrow. We'll see. But prior to that tweet, the Nevada Independent has been silent. And so Crawford says St. Louis threw down the great. Yeah, let me get to that in a second. And Crawford says settlements could be money. They need to make the NFL tap out. Malcontent says, Z, ironically, that headline about teachers union versus Clark County will eventually be directly related to the Raiders' new gym obligation bond. Yeah. And how about that gobbledygook, which I, by the way, did film and I did not put up yet, that Jeremy Arguello talked about. The reserve fund is $45 million. And that $45 million will be enough to cover any shortfalls and bullshit. Okay. What they set up was this situation. They're only covering $650 million. There's just about 50 million. Well, there's $45 million they've collected to date. Okay, they're going to give that over, but there's a gap that has to be filled in, and they're going to bet on the come that they can actually fill that gap with the tax revenue coming in. And it's going to take, let's see, they said 2022 before that fills in, before that's done in terms of the process. Be ready. So remember I said that because they have that gap to fill and the Raiders are not going to fill in that money, that it would delay the project, essentially delay the issuance of the bonds. And they said that, and I've got to go back and replay that part of it, but Jessica said it would be 2022 before they could be released, substantially, or words to that effect, which is interesting because it would seem to imply the stadium is going to be pushed back in terms of its completion. That's what it would seem to imply. I'm going to put that up and then review that, okay? But because the county commission didn't know the questions to ask, they allowed themselves to be snowed with jargon and they don't understand it. Here's really simple questioning. Will this impact my general fund? Because it's general obligation bond, the answer is yes. If you don't bring in enough money, it's that simple. You tell me about reserves and yada, yada, yada. The reason is that the reserve money has to be drawn from the same revenue stream that the tax rate pulls from hotel spending by visitors, okay? When you go to the secondary fund, you're dipping into the general fund. Boy, I mean, it's a simple concept, but instead of just saying it like I said it, they use the fund balance approach. Okay, so hey, why do all this? You ready? Money. It's always money. Today, the largest subsidy in sports history was approved. Which means what? Which means that 7 banks got richer. Basically, you take a fee of what I estimate to be about, $16.31 million and divide that by 7 banks. And not only the 7 banks, maybe Jeremy Arguello got a little piece because he's been heavily involved in it. He was there, okay? All the people, Guy Hobbs, who's a great guy, by the way. Guy Hobbs is a true gentleman. Who's a true gentleman. So I'm not saying anything with respect to Guy that should be considered untoward. Guy Hobbs is a mensch. I will tell you that he is a mensch. He is an outstanding person. Man, I can't wait to have dinner with. He's a mensch. Okay? He's doing his job. He did his job. We had a lot of fantastic conversations. I love Guy Hobbs of Hobbs On. Great person. I hope somebody takes this and say, Guy, take a look at this part. Right? Okay? Great, outstanding individual. Outstanding, okay? That does not mean I'm comfortable with the deal entirely. I'm comfortable with the fact that he paid attention to what I was explaining, addressed me with respect, which is something the Raiders did not do. He was the one person, Guy Hobbs, that has made this thing so much fun. Because we can... he understands where I'm coming from, but he also respects my history, my knowledge. He goes over what I send him. I send him my spreadsheets. He looks at them. Hamzong is a financial advisory firm that's under contract to Clark County. They've done a lot of deals for Clark County. Great guy. Guy Hobbs is a fantastic guy. And Jessica Colvin, I want to thank her very much for texting me. She did so at the request of Commissioner Giuliani. And I called Commissioner Giuliani, and once I got back the feedback, I gave her my honest assessment. I said, hey, they have the right idea in terms of trying to protect the taxpayer, but it's the visitor rates that I'm concerned about because we've had 9 months of losses. All right? And this is good stuff that had Rich Vallota of the Las Vegas Review-Journal called me, he could have known about. We would have had a great, very informative piece for people so they can understand how to think about this thing, right? But no. Oh, well. Onward. I did the right thing. My heart. Hey, CCIG Tiger Rugby, baby, in Hong Kong. My heart's in the right place, okay? Tom Kohler says, look, the deal is... Oh, sorry, Tom. Let me go back and read what you wrote. Tom Kohler says, look, the deal is bad, but after all falls apart, the stadium is almost finished, and they have to finish it. So Vegas is at least have a great stadium, but parking, no football. You know, as I said, it's an exciting project. You know, and the get your popcorn ready moment will be to see, hey, cost overruns. Because remember, we have until today is April 3rd to October, where they're still getting bids for material after the tariff. All right, and with everything else, who knows? No, but now we got the Chinese that have put on their tariffs as well. So all this spells. And then I've talked about the caliche problem that's going to rear its head as we move forward. This is a jungle. All right. Now, let's see here. John Mark says, this is so stupid, guys. Richard Lucero says, not me. I ain't spending my money on that stadium. And in my opinion, Las Vegas will get a bad project in 2020, says Devsman Davis. And Las Vegas really believes that Oakland fans will drive 9 hours through the desert to watch bad football. And that's the other thing. You know what? If the Raiders don't, concerning the Raiders, the way the Raiders are treated fans, if the Raiders don't put a good product on the field after all this, remember what happened with Del Rio, right? It makes everything that much worse. It really does. No one's going to pay high dollar for a bad football product. They're just not, okay? At all. Now, here's the thing. Don't think that if the stadium gets to where it's eventually completed, people won't want to see it the first year. Oh, they will. The worry will come in years 2 and 3 and so on, okay? And even then, the worry will come after like the first, 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 games. If the Raiders aren't winning, if they don't go the way of the Golden Knights, okay? And I love the way Jen Giuliani put it out there that, hey, the Golden Knights are homegrown. They didn't require any public money. She really just threw it in the face of the Raiders like, because it's true. The Golden Knights didn't require any public money. There's no other sport organization that had to have this huge infusion of public dollars except the Raiders. The Raiders are the taxpayer trough. Just the way it is. Just the way it is. May 16th, 2018. I got to get this out of the way. The Raiders, that deadline, you got to give it to them. The Raiders managed to escape with some time, okay? Because, look, all the documents are signed. The bond issue was approved. Now, is there a concern with respect to what UNLV might do with respect to the Regents? Yes, because Lynn Jessup is out the door. He's blamed the Regents. Donors have pulled their money. And how that will affect this stadium project, I don't know. Okay? And that's something else that has to be asked. So the Raiders are by no means entirely out of the woods with this thing. But a lot of the problems that they were looking at in the past, they've been able to say, okay, we've cleared some hurdles. We've whittled it down to some things we're still very concerned about. And here we are, all right? But they've got to be concerned about how they treated their fans. They really do. People are not, but they really do, all right? So Malcontent says, or was Aguero lying saying Clark County would loan the developer funds and then seek to fill back in some to 2022? Let me see what you're talking about, Malcontent. Let's see here. What's even worse, says Barry Lee, magic money in the air that's going to be created and all this. And Agrilla said, well, this fund will be replenished at $9 million per if they have that and they replenish it, right? But look, if you're not collecting enough money, if you're not meeting your debt service obligations, you cannot put money into the reserve because it's not there. Your only recourse, because it's a general obligation bond, is to take it from the taxpayers themselves. It's that simple. And it would be great if someone, maybe I should have been there. No, Mom's needs me. Someone had said that. But no. They had to go with the esoteric stuff. Hey, welcome to Zinni62, everybody. Mark Bedane, I hope you're watching. Congratulations. Maybe you have better things to do. But if you didn't, welcome. And let's see here. Mark says, can you say Las Vegas Raiders came Keystone Cops? Richard Lucero says, go figure, more time, another excuse. But hey, that's the Raiders for you. And Barry Lee says, the honeymoon will be over after 1 year. Well, yeah. It's, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. Let me take a look at what St. Louis has done here. With respect to their little bombshell, or maybe I should call it a big bombshell. I'm trying to get the guy who wrote about St. Louis and the NFL on this show. See if once I land him, you'll know it. Okay. St. Louis lawsuit. Typing St. Louis lawsuit, see if I can find some more information. Maybe somebody's written it. Something. Let's see here. St. Louis. How about NFL? No, that's latest. Kevin Stevenson tweets 5 hours ago, great news for St. Louis taxpayers and fans of the NFL, fans that had their hearts torn out by the Rams, NFL. Kevin Dimov, years of lying and deceit, knowing they were never staying in St. Louis. Randy Kramer, thanks for keeping us informed on this lawsuit. Hashtag St. Louis. Hashtag, the other stuff. And so, right, Curtis Kalin says, the St. Louis lawsuit against the Rams, the NFL takes a massive step towards St. Louis. This is 11 hours ago. When Randy Krakauer tweeted, the Missouri Supreme Court has denied the NFL's writ requesting many owners' employees in the St. Louis County RSA is the Regional Sports Authority lawsuit against the NFL, meaning all 85 defendants named are included. Case will move forward in St. Louis with every owner. League owners now must provide discovery. What that means is they have to provide emails. Those emails go public on the relocation. Boy, oh boy, Katie barred the door. Wow. And that's why I tweeted, hey, Randy, love to have you on the show. And then Tommy Hummel says, biggest witness could be Jerry Richardson, former owner of the Carolina Panthers, forced out by the NFL and was pro St. Louis. Might have some great dirt. Randy Kracker says, agreed. And the last NFL owners meeting he went to was the one where relocation was approved. Not thrilled with the process. And then Ignacio Arredondo responds, Randy, will we ever get NFL back here in St. Louis? I love football. Randy says, not in my lifetime, which hopefully will be 25 more years. He also says, damn. Ram Squatch says, what does this all mean? Sorry. And Randy responds, owners didn't want to have to be part of the lawsuit, wanted it to be just the NFL that was sued. With this decision today, every owner and many league and team execs must provide information related to the suit and be deposed. Ram Squatch replies, oh, geez. It's so this tweet flow is hilarious. And he says, Mike Claiborne says, hey, can we build a gallows now? Mike Claiborne says, it'll be top-notch work provided by the Carpenters Union in St. Louis. Probably haven't donated. I'll buy the nails. And then there's another one by Mike C. It says, kudos to the Missouri courts for holding the NFL and its owners accountable for that debacle. Curtis Kalin tweets, Tim Mickerman's 30 for 30 can now come to fruition. Donald Keefe replies to Randy. He says, just remember, Kevin Dimov, that when you administer the oath before your upcoming deposition, you are swearing to tell the truth and not what Stan told you to say, to the good people in St. Louis. And then Samson replying to Randy Cracker, just give us an expansion team and we'll make the lawsuit go away. And Jason Eaton tweets, and throw in a stadium. Matthew Booth says, replying, the cartel must be a little nervous about this. They've always won, and for once, they have their feet held to the fire. John Crosco just thought like that. Ron Mishauer tweets, anyone want to bet some of the owners will try greasing the city leaders and all this goes away? Money can make things disappear. Joshua says, let's thinking the same thing. I smell an expansion team in the next couple of years. Kevin Jordan replying to Randy Cracker, funny how they need to win now, and they didn't want to win while Stan and Dimoff played the move. That's a great point, you know? It's all of a sudden, it's like they've got Brandon Cooks, 24 touchdown receptions since 2015. Nada Kamsu, 5-time Pro Bowler. Aqib Talib, 5-time Pro Bowler. Marcus Peters, 19 interceptions since 2015. You know, when I see this lineup, I think of one thing, old. The Rams will not be a champion this year. Why do I say that? Look no further than the New York Giants of, I believe it was 4 years ago, where they spent like $88 million on high-dollar draft picks and promptly went into the tank. Remember that? Because, look, the model is you want to have people that you built through the draft to have that solid foundation, and then you add in a star like, you know, Deion Sanders or something like that, right? Just give me an example. But to wholesale just toss out your team and just remake it like that and think that you're arrogantly this great coach that can assemble all of these egos and produce a championship in the same season, there's no example where that has, you know, been, or a team, organization has done that and succeeded entirely. Again, I look back to the 49ers and how they had a couple of big names that they got when Eddie DeBartolo was on the team, but they didn't have this whole turnover. It was like this went whoosh, okay? The Rams do. Okay, anyway, discovery will take years, it says. I don't know. Kevin says Andrew Luther. I don't know about that. Kevin Whittemar says, I would love to have another NFL team in St. Louis, but not until regime changes happen. The current selection of owners in Goodell need to go before I would trust the NFL not to betray us again. Joe Bright says, take the proceeds from the Rams NFL potential settlement, and put it toward soccer. And so anyway, it says, great news. They were singing like songbirds and wanting to be in LA after relocation. Shouldn't be hard to compare timeliness of the lies they were saying in St. Louis. Everyone loves this. Yeah. The only Raider observer who tweeted on this was me. This is great stuff, though. A lot of replies to this bit of news. So it's St. Louis news. Judge tosses. Oh, that's grass. Something else. All right. Anyway, quite interesting. Quite fascinating. Very, very, very much fascinating. To say the least. Okay. Steely Blues. How you doing? Steely Blues says, good for St. Louis. It would be nice if the Oakland politicians had the same courage and we're not a bunch of cowards. Black Lion Supreme says, one love Oakland. John Marks agrees. Dean Willie says, no other owner would have left the Bay Area for Vegas. Richard Lucero, flashbacks old school. Attention Kmart customers, the blue light sale is on. What about the green stamps? Ha ha ha. John Marks says, yeah, the Kmart's a saving place. I'm going back over your comments. Tom Kohler says it's the Adelson Raiders, not the Las Vegas Raiders. You know, I like that. I'm going to call them the Adelson Raiders from now on. I'm going to refer to them as that. I'm going to refer to them as the Oakland Adelson Raiders until they move, and they'll be the Adelson Raiders. All right. Barry Lee says, "Woof woof." If the Jags were to move, which they are not, it would be London first choice, the London Jaguars. You know, that would take a massive NFL realignment. So we'll have to. I'm skeptical that's going to occur anytime soon. We'll see, but I'm skeptical. All right. Malcontent says the money to fill the shortfall come from schools, local infrastructure, etc. That's a price that Clark County, cough, just like Alameda County, cannot afford. Nope, sure can't. All time something says, "Hey, Zinny62, how are you?" I'm all right. I've been better actually, but you know, I'm here. Here for my mom. So that's it. Okay. Rich Lucille says, "Go figure. More time, another excuse." But hey, that's the Raiders for you. Okay, that was a while back. Okay, so I've gotten yours and you up to date. Now, Ed says Oakland politicians need to fight to the end. You have nothing to lose. Vegas will backfire. Hennessy, how you doing? And to that, I will share with you an email that I wrote that comes from the having to do with the non-relocation agreement. I think I read this last night though, but I'm going to read it again. This goes to the Alameda County Council, Donna Ziegler, who said that basically I was wrong about the whole loan issue, non-recourse loan issue. All right. Greetings, Ms. Ziegler. I'm reaching out to you directly in an audience that is a mix of Oakland, Alameda County Coliseum JPA representatives, and We Stand with Oakland and Forever Oakland members to address information I received from a source that you told the source, quote, I was wrong in, quote, my theory, unquote, of the collectability of what is a misnamed non-recourse loan to the Oakland Raiders that was originally $64 million and now has grew to $155 million. The fact that this wording exists in the Coliseum JPA financial documents points to a horrible legacy of neglected responsibility to solve the problem, one that your response to my source says you intend to allow to remain. Indeed, it points to the Coliseum JPA's many years of mismanagement and complete ignorance of how legal results with the Oakland Raiders impacted. This has to stop ASAP. It should have stopped years ago. Now I have to say, that legacy mismanagement stopped with Scott McKibben. Just want to get that in. First, I must get this out of the way. I have lived with the story of the Raiders' return to Oakland. Indeed, before I was hired by Oakland Mayor Elihu Harris on December 17, 1995, I wrote about that for the Montclarian. According to then Oakland Tribune columnist Monty Poole, I broke the story of the return of the Raiders to Oakland in March of 1995. That means I had a fingertipped feel for the Raiders deal. Indeed, my first job out of city planning grad school at Cal was with the Oakland Redevelopment Agency in 1987, and I wound up working for Ezra Rapport. He's the architect of the Raiders deal. I built the computer model that led to the creation of the Coliseum Redevelopment Survey Area, which later became a full redevelopment area. In 1990, I befriended the late Alameda County Council Richard Winnie, who became a mentor. We had breakfast each Wednesday at the old Cuckoo's Nest restaurant in Jack London Square at 7:30 in the morning. We would even run the Jerry Brown from time to time. In late January of 1996, Ezra met with Louis Cohen, who represented Ignacio de la Fuente, council member at the time, Valerie, I forgot Valerie's last name, who worked for Councilmember Larry Reed, and myself. The subject was the Raiders deal. Ezra told us to know the Raiders documents backward and forward because no one else cares. Ezra said that, and to this day, his words are still very true. In that spirit, Ms. Ziegler, I have to say with respect that you really don't understand the intent of the Raiders' law. It was really, as the California Supreme Court recognized in 2007 in a review of the deal's history, a payment and not a non-recourse loan. Have a read for yourself. If you want to check it out, you can go to it's socal.edu/opinion/Oakland Raiders versus National Football League 33766. Okay. That, Ms. Ziegler, is very important because the courts held that the Raiders had to share that payment with the National Football League and called it a revenue enhancement. Thus, even to think that a court would agree to this day that the payment is a non-recourse loan, and only because you say it is, flies in the face of several facts and harms our collective ability to seek redress for damages. Fact 1. The payment is not a loan, and the courts have seen it as money that was to be shared with the teams of the National Football League by the Raiders. In that way, it is more like the NFL relocation fee of today, except that we paid it for the Raiders. Today, the Raiders pay it for themselves. Fact 2. The deal to get the Raiders back to Oakland never directly contemplated the team trying to leave. But in that, it does have a sort of escape hatch for us. The deal, as Ezra said back then, was designed on the assumption that the Raiders, being an active tenant, was the act of paying back the loan. Obviously and logically, then, one has to ask the question, what happens when the Raiders leave? Well, the simple answer is that should point to a trigger to get the loan back. In other words, and removing the term loan, the payment and the fact that it balloons in value should be considered a poison pill to fight against a relocation action. The Raiders basically agreed to a scenario where a court could have the team pay retroactive damages. In all, think of it this way. The idea was that the Raiders were to always stay in Oakland. Okay? The payment and its increasing function, its increasing value, okay, was a reflection of the basic value of the Raiders being in Oakland at the Coliseum. The Raiders leave, they have to pay that back. You can't just ignore this as the Coliseum JPA has done to this point. It's been a long time, folks. 1996 till now, okay? Indeed, the courts have paved the way for this. A judge would once again say that the payment to the Raiders was not a true loan. So the idea that is non-recourse has to be tossed out of the window. It will not hold up in court. Fact 3. The Raiders under Mark Davis never once approached Oakland to initiate new stadium talks, contrary to NFL Commissioner Roger Goodell's claims. Moreover, the Raiders never once petitioned the NFL to have up to $200 million in monies applied to upgrade the Coliseum. However, in 2008, 2012, 2011, 2012, 2014, 2015, 2016, 2017, and 2018, the Raiders have, in some way, gave a powerful sign that they were going to try and relocate the team to Los Angeles, San Antonio, Carson, or Las Vegas. Fact 4. NFL Commissioner Roger Goodell does partly blame the Raiders for their stadium problems in Oakland. Here's my video because it was my question to him that caused the response in 2016. I left the URL for her. So, as you can see, Ms. Ziegler, we have a lot and more to work with in what should be an earnest and focused effort to collect damages. This has to be something that is done. To hold it up for invented reasons is basically criminal. In other words, allowing an organization to do harm to us and continue to do so. Donna, do you realize the master lease agreement contains a provision that the Raiders can't badmouth the deal? Well, starting October 12, 1997, on the NFL on NBC, Al Davis, the late Al Davis, did just that. I know, because I wrote a memo to Mayor Harris on this. That monitoring the Raiders and what the Raiders did was one of my jobs at the time. For all practical purposes, I never stopped doing my job. We must take action. No excuses. No made-up arguments that fly in the face of legal history. We must sue the Raiders. Also, the matter of that payment to the Raiders may wind up being seen today as a misuse of public funds, but the statute of limitations on that has ran out, so forget it. We're good to go. Best Zinni. And that's what I wrote to her, okay? So, what do you think? There you go, all right? There you go. There you go. Riley says, Sears' new Wish book cover is ticket. Milquist says, I know that the new helmet rule will not settle very well with all the teams and how they play. I have a question for everybody. Do you think the Rams will sink or swim in Los Angeles? Black Lion Supreme asks, he says, under the same circumstances, would the city of Atlanta have waited for the Falcons to approach them for a stadium deal? Nope. Atlanta came up with their own deal. Hey, by the way, welcome to Zenny62 on YouTube. Thank you for joining me. There's a good number of you tonight. Good number of you, all right? We've got, let me see here. Lucero says, we got you guys still going on the Ed says, praying for you. Financing parking on to-do list for Las Vegas Raiders Stadium. Poor Review Journal. You're constantly being forced to catch up to all the stuff that I put out. Isn't that so? Hey, wait a minute. This is interesting. This is the Reno Gazette-Journal is another publication that has, wow, this is interesting. The Reno Gazette-Journal, the Reno Gazette-Journal is a publication that has, for all practical purposes, steered clear of writing a lot of content about the Raiders deal until now. Reno Gazette-Journal analysis of Sandoval's calendar sheds light.
Ashley Home Store is celebrating.
Sheds light on Stadium Vote Reed relationship. And this is put out today. Well, April 3rd, okay? It says, Harry Reid, casino bosses count among Sandoval's most frequent contacts. This is really interesting. September 21st, 2016 was a busy day in Governor Brian Sandoval's office. And I met Brian Sandoval. Brian Sandoval class act. I like Brian Sandoval. It started with a 9 a.m. phone call to a prominent Southern Nevada labor leader and soon-to-be outspoken supporter of the Oakland Raiders' new 65,000-seat, $1.8 billion, I want to say $2 billion, stadium now under construction in Las Vegas. It ended with the announcement of a special state legislative session to examine a controversial $750 million public funding package for the Raiders' new home near Las Vegas Strip. Now, think about that. September 21st, 2016. September 21st, 2016. Now, all that happened during the time that we had an active, exclusive. Yeah, that was around the time that the Raiders were. That was around the time. Just before then, it looked like the Raiders were going to negotiate with Oakland to build a new stadium. We had Larry McNeil meeting with Claudia Capio. Notice Larry McNeil's gone from the Raiders. Claudia Capio's retired from the city of Oakland. I have the emails from their exchanges. Anyway, but I digress, all right? It ended with the announcement talking about this 9 a.m. phone call to prominent Southern Nevada labor leader and soon-to-be outspoken supporter of the Oakland Raiders' new 65,000-seat, $1.8 billion stadium now under construction in Las Vegas. It ended with the announcement of a special state legislative session to examine the controversial $750 million public funding package for the Raiders' new home near the Las Vegas Strip. In between, Sandoval put in a flurry of phone calls to a string of high-powered casino executives and Southern Nevada public officials who would soon ramp up their support for the Raiders' move to Sin City. Six of the nine heavy hitters Sandoval spoke with went on to lavish praise on the stadium in early October remarks before state lawmakers. In fact, 3 in that group met with Sandoval only minutes before addressing the special session, according to a copy of the governor's calendar obtained under a records request by the Review-Journal. You can see the entire calendar at the bottom of this story. A week after legislators heard their testimony, Nevada's perennially popular governor signed the largest taxpayer handout for a stadium in NFL history. Sandoval's potentially legacy-altering stadium, finally approved by NFL owners just last week, won't be finished until August 2020, more than a year after he leaves office. But details on the groundwork Sandoval laid out in front of that deal and the people he embraced ahead of other key decisions are available by the typically spotlight-shy governor's calendar. A Reno Gazette-Journal analysis of the governor's calendar shows some of the schedule's more detailed entries, which date back to 2016. It paints an eclectic, bipartisan picture of the term-limited Republicans' closest confidants. Other, more heavily redacted parts include entries blotted out around the time Sandoval was flagged as a possible pick for the United States Supreme Court in early 2016, and it may speak volumes without divulging anything at all. Among the Reno Gazette-Journal's findings of Sandoval's calendar, meetings with the titans of the gaming industry, 22 scheduled interactions with top Nevada casino executives, including disgraced Wynn Resort CEO Steve Wynn and Las Vegas Sands Corporation Chairman Sheldon Adelson. MGM Resorts CEO Jim Murren, in particular, had Sandoval's ear. He, together with his wife, logged 8 known meetings or phone calls with the governor, more than most Sandoval staffers and all but one of the governor's cabinet members. A regular relationship with Reid, not Heller. That's right, Harry Reid, Democrat. 13 phone calls and visits with former U.S. Senator Harry Reid, the stalwart Democrat and former Senate Majority Leader. Reid was by far Democrat. Sandoval's most frequent contact among fellow elected officials. U.S. Senator Dean Heller, Nevada, by contrast, had 2 recorded interactions with Sandoval. Now think about what I'm telling you. You got the whole of Nevada power focused on getting the Raiders away from Oakland. And yet Oakland had no muscle like that, no comparable muscle at all. No one calling Oakland Mayor Libby Schaaf and saying, hey, look, get Jerry Brown involved. This wasn't led by Jerry Brown. It wasn't led by Libby, really. It was just sort of piecemeal, right, by comparison. This was coordinated by the governor. And the governor used his political muscle to the hilt. Okay? This is a lesson in how to do politics. It really is. It really is. It really is. And it's also a lesson in understanding who the Raiders are going to owe. Because they did all this for the Raiders, and now the Raiders have to play ball. Okay? Now, talks with major companies, 8 combined meetings and phone calls with lobbyists and executives from Amazon, SolarCity, and Switch, the Las Vegas-based beneficiary of more than $20 million in taxpayer-backed development incentives doled out by the Governor's Office of Economic Development. Steve Hill, the state's former economic development director, was also the governor's closest cabinet confidant, garnering more calendar appearances than any other calendar member. Our brokers behind the scenes. Re-interactions with top political power brokers Billy Vasadis and Sig Rajic, the CEO and founder, respectively, of celebrated Las Vegas advertising and public relations firm R&R Partners. Ooh. Vasadis is a top Democratic advisor who has famously been called the most powerful unelected man in Nevada. It'll be a great interview. One known conversation with Attorney General Adam Laxalt. He's a fellow Republican and the GOP favorite to succeed Sandoval. Laxalt, known as a staunch conservative, has split with the more moderate Sandoval on a handful of well-known policy issues, including support for the governor's hallmark 2015 commerce tax increase. Comings and goings. Sandoval's office did not answer questions about the substance of his September 2016 talks with prominent Las Vegas Stadium backers, including his September 21st calls with AFL-CIO boss Danny Thompson, Las Vegas Convention and Visitors Authority CEO Rosie Wallencotter, and Clark County Commission Chairman Steve Sisolak. Hours before calling a special session, Sandoval also spoke to Wynn and Murin, as well as Boyd Gaming CEO Keith Smith and Jan Jones Blackhurst, the Caesars Entertainment executive. Two of his final calls went to Station Casino CEO Frank Ferrita, a long-rumored potential investor in the Raiders' move to Las Vegas, and Adelson, a one-time financial backer of the team's stadium near the Las Vegas Strip. Over the next 4 weeks, Blackhurst and Sisolak, now a Democratic frontrunner to take Sandoval's seat, headlined events and hit the airwaves to build support behind the project's record-breaking public funding package. Thompson, Wynn, Murin, and Wallencotter each joined the pair in praising the project before state lawmakers. The governor's office did not answer questions about this role in lining up that support, instead deferring to a statement from Catherine Reynolds, Sandoval's top attorney. In reviewing these documents, it's important to understand that the governor's Outlook calendar is a tool. It is not a definitive record of his activities, Reynolds wrote in an email. On any given day, meetings or interactions may occur that were not previously placed on the calendar. Similarly, events that appear on the calendar may have been canceled due to circumstances of that day. Reynolds replied with the same statement when asked about more than 24 meetings and phone calls, 24, that Sandoval had with undisclosed participants since the start of 2016. Many of those get-togethers were held in the run-up to the Las Vegas Stadium deal and the governor's mansion, and at the governor's mansion in the 2017 legislative session. Raiders and healthcare talks. Sandoval has said he spoke with Raiders owner Mark Davis the same week he announced the special session on the stadium. There's no evidence of the call in his calendar, though there is a record of 3 get-togethers with the Raiders and the representatives dating back to March of 2016. Holy shit. Bingo. This gets deep, folks, okay? Because March 2016 further fills in the gap where the Raiders were violating a promise they made to the Oakland. They wouldn't have any, they weren't supposed to be doing this in March. They're going to wait until April to talk about a new lease for the Coliseum, right? But this says March 8th. It says, and I quote, "There's no evidence of the call in his calendar, though there is a record of 3 get-togethers with the Raiders and the representatives dating back to March 8th, 2016. Someone's got to email the elected officials of Oakland and let them know. That first meeting with Davis and top Adelson aide Andy Aboud came roughly 1 month before Sandoval sat down for a stadium update with top aides. Sandoval's calendar shows he wouldn't speak with Davis or the Raiders or Raiders president Mark Bourdain for almost another year when he scheduled a pair of chats on February 8th and March 23rd of 2017. The governor had plenty on his plate by the time that conversation rolled around. 6 days earlier, Sandoval had joined 4 other Republican governors in coming out against House Speaker Paul Ryan's ill-fated plan to repeal and replace Obamacare. Calendar entries show the decision to oppose a long-awaited Trump care proposal was preceded by a bevy of phone calls with top White House staffers, insurance company executives, and potential political advisors. Sandoval, who in 2012 became the first Republican governor to embrace expanded Medicaid coverage under Obamacare, said at the time he was worried about what Ryan's bill would do to 300,000 Nevadans who already gain expanded Medicaid coverage. He spoke publicly, Sandoval did, about his discussions with then White House Deputy Rick Dearborn and then Health and Human Services Secretary Tom Price, Trump's first pick to helm the massive agency charged with administering Medicare and Medicaid. It's not clear he said anything about his talks with Republican kingmaker Rogich and Aetna President Karen Lynch, each of whom he called just 3 days before accelerating his attack on the healthcare proposal. Empty entries. There's perhaps also something to glean from what was left out of the governor's calendar. Take Sandoval's February 16th schedule. Apart from an apparently unrelated trip to Washington, D.C., a pair of phone calls with Senator Reid, and a string of redactions, there's little to suggest Sandoval was being eyed as an appointee to the United States Supreme Court. Yet, that's exactly what the Washington Post reported later that same month, citing 2 sources who said President Barack Obama was considering the former federal judge to fill the seat left vacant by the death of Judge Antonin Scalia. Sandoval took himself out of the running for the seat a day later. Sandoval split with his wife Kathleen, sad news, first announced in December and finalized late February, is also not explicitly mentioned in his calendar, nor are the names of either spouse's divorce attorneys. After missing a long stretch of a famed October 2016 press conference that saw prominent Nevada Republicans, among them Sandoval and Heller, withdraw support for then-candidate Donald Trump, the move came amid a wave of dump Trump announcements put out by GOP politicians. This is more political. Doesn't touch on the Raiders, but the rest of this is not related to the Raiders, and it's got the calendar. But my point is that about, I would say, 7/8 of this great, fantastic article. And you know what? It's not every day you read stuff that's this thick in a regular publication. It takes a blog. But this is fantastic work by, who wrote this? Shout out to James, what's his name? James DeHaven. Be fun to get James DeHaven on the show, right? How about that? March 8th, 2016. That squares with a document that I have by Aubrey Clerkin from UNLV, released January 28th of that 2016, which stated that Mark Davis was going to meet, or Raider representatives, didn't say Mark Davis, but Oakland Raider representatives were going to meet with UNLV President Lynn Jessup and Las Vegas Sands representatives and search for a new stadium home in Las Vegas Valley. That's what it said. So we can see that basically the Raiders were busy through a period of time where they told the city they weren't going to be doing anything at all. And the city of Oakland had no idea, and the county of Alameda had no idea the Raiders were even thinking about Las Vegas. Gotcha. Wow. And so Barry Lee says there's also visual evidence from Mark Davis saying many times to reporters that Oakland was home and they weren't going anywhere. Yeah, I have that. I have that in video. And John Mark says, yep, but yes, Barry Lee. Even Ray Perez, aka Dr. Death, mentioned that as well. Black Lion Supreme says, it seems to me that the leadership of Oakland is all in for the move to Vegas. You know, which would imply this question, which would bring up this question: is somebody profiting from not acting? You know, there's always something to be gotten by this, right? What's going on? You know, I mean, that's what's going on, right? Albert 106 says, you should interview him. Yeah, I'm going to try. Malcolm says, evidence. Mark Hyatt, I can't pronounce this. Anyway, he says, Mark Davis never told the truth. The second his father passed away, he was looking to move the team. That's true. That's documented. I documented that. Black Lion Supreme says, so who do we blame, John Marks? Oakland or the Raiders? We blame the Raiders. And Black Lion Supreme, if you want a reason why, look at the work that every NFL team has done in building a new stadium in their region. Mark Wolf, part of the ownership of the Minnesota Vikings, personally told me, and in fact, Godfather Grizz was with me. You'll remember it at the NFL owners meeting last year, the not the fall owners meeting, but the annual league meeting, which was in Arizona. This year it was in Orlando. He said he couldn't possibly imagine not giving a new stadium to his home. That's what he said. And I remember Grizz saying, you know, I wish we had an owner that thought that way. Okay. So John Mark says, I think we both blame both parties since they both can't get their story straight. Well, we have a history. Again, 2008, 2011, 2012, 2013, 2014, 2015, 2016, 17, 18. The Raiders have been angling to get out of Oakland since 2008 in one way or another. So, and they haven't put any money in the Coliseum. So at the end of the day, who do you blame? You blame the Raiders. Now, does that mean that Oakland had its act together? No. The Coliseum JPA has a long history of mismanagement. But that mismanagement has shown its head. It's reared its head in neglect. Neglect of, for example, the matter of this payment and how it should be handled, which exists to this day. Neglect in not establishing a future for the stadium and sticking to that. Neglect in all kinds of ways. Neglect in writing a deferred maintenance contract to SMG early on during the early aughts, which resulted in a punch list of 140 items not done for years. Things like replacing baseboards and luxury suites in the Coliseum, installing non-skid in the stairways between the 200 level and the 300 level, which has been a big issue with me for years. I have yelled about this for years, and it's still not done. Rain comes just so, you can slip and fall. We have been very fortunate to not have an injury, let alone a death, because of that hazard. But it's like many other things in the Coliseum, it's sitting there just waiting to happen. People talk about the locker rooms and the sewage backup, okay? That is due to undone, needed plumbing improvement and also rainwater drainage improvement items that were listed on the punch list. You say, what am I talking about punch list? Okay. When I started working for Elihu and I started snooping around, this is 1996, after I was hired, December 17th of 1995, I discovered a punch list of items that was written by Ezra Rapport, who was assistant city manager and architect of the Raiders deal, of improvements that needed to be done to the Coliseum Stadium that were undone, okay? A punch list that the Raiders, if they were really paying attention to things, would have based a good lawsuit on, but never did, okay? Which means the Raiders weren't minding their own store either, okay? I, however, consistently pointed to this punch list and said, we as a city need to pay attention to this because the fact that you have so many items not done. You go into a luxury suite, you've got a carpet that bends over and it's got this part of it that sticks out where somebody could trip over it or some kid could get his finger or her finger caught in it. You know, things like that you have to think about as you go through the facility, right? Left them undone. And I don't know that they've been done to this day. In fact, the punch list is in 150 Frank Ogawa. It's not, if it's anywhere, it's not out at the Coliseum complex. There's a room in that building, I know where it is, that has drawers of memos related to the JPA. Drawers. Okay. But hey, look, when you're understaffed, Scott doesn't have interns working for him. Hey, Scott actually should call USF, University of San Francisco Sport Management Program, get some interns working for him, do some digging on this thing, okay? This is bad stuff. Bradley says, if I'm not mistaken, the difference between the Raiders and the Rams is the Rams never said that St. Louis was home, and they weren't going anywhere, but I could be wrong. There are a number of St. Louis people who say you're wrong. John Mark says the lawsuit waiting to happen. Yep. Malcontent says local politicals equals lies of omission. Oakland Raiders equals lies of commission. That's very true. It is 2:17, folks. I'm going to angle to go, sleep. But this is interesting conversation. Now we have, welcome to Zenny62, by the way. And I want to say again, for all I have said, I want to emphasize congratulations to Oakland Raiders president Mark Benet, and that the Raiders need to treat everybody nice. Not just people who are putting money into them, not just season ticket holders, everybody, people they've been mean to. Nice. They need to bring Raider Nation together because Raider Nation is splintered. This divide and conquer isn't working, and unless the Raiders stop this, that increasing cache of bad karma is going to spill over into what they want to do in Las Vegas. Indeed, I argue that it already is. Okay, so as John Mark says, you bet your last money it's all going to be a stone gas honey and watch horror films keep America strong. Yes. Barry Lee says, okay, have to get some sleep. I also have to work. Hey, you got it. Good night, Barry Lee. We'll see you, man. I'll see you. It's 44 people on at 2:19 in the morning. Thank you. Which means that you all must be out on the West Coast, because here I'm in the East. It's what? It's not even midnight. It's 11:19 out there where you're at. 11:19. Hibiscus tea. Albert 106 says Oakland. You're in Oakland. Okay. How many people, by a show of wise, like yes, are on the West Coast? Albert? Who else? There are a lot of you. Okay, no, some of you dropped already. You're thinking, yeah. John Mark says, let's go Oakland. But you're in Kelso, Washington. Who's your daddy is there? Who else? I haven't seen Hector in a long time. Corey Brown. Hey, Corey. How you doing? Malcontent. Dan Dog. Dan Dog in a while. How you doing, Dan Dog? How you doing, Dan Dog? Miles. You live by Rocky Mountains. Gotcha. Miles is a mountain man. Rykad. Hey, how you doing, Rykad? Barry Lee is in Texas. Says good night, and don't forget about the blue light special on the other side of Sears. You got it. Dan Dog says good, thank you, Modesto. To which I say dilly illy. Black Lion Supreme says, I'm in Sacramento and I have a place in Oakland. Nice. Nice. Black Lion. Hey, you wouldn't have to be Kevin Johnson, would you? Former mayor of Sacramento. John Mark says, Sears diehard. Great battery, as I call it. Great battery. Joseph Binsman says, I'm a loyal New Jersey follower. Ha. I stay up most nights. Thank you. Terrell Johnson, how are you, Terrell? And thank you very much for your comments on the live stream. I saw them very much. Thank you for the mention of me. It's very nice, very kind. I was going to chime in, and I thought, I better just stay out. But I saw you. Thank you, man. Much appreciated. Very much appreciated. It was very nice. Hey, by the way, do you realize that Tiger Woods is in the Masters? He's a favorite. Wow. Miles Lundquist says, Colorado Springs, Colorado. All right. Black Lion says, no, but I played tennis with KG at Cal Berkeley. Is that right? There you go. Go Bears. I went to Cal, graduated in 87, was on the awards committee for the alumni board from 1998 to 2004. Yeah. Go Bears. To which I, go Bears. All the great people went to Cal. Me, Mike Silver, Greg Haywood, Joseph Binsman says, has been looking good. Brian Fitzpatrick has been looking good in the last couple of tournaments I saw him in. Seems Tiger is finally healthy again. We will see if he has to pull it off, has it to pull off the Masters. Tee time for Tiger is 10:28 Thursday morning, 10:28 a.m. Eastern. Tee time for Tiger in Augusta, 2 hours north from here. Still have never been to the Masters. Shame. I'm just thinking, folks. Just thinking, just thinking. Arcat says Tiger is washed up and he's been hanging out with Trump and all those prawn stars. I like Tiger, man. I can't wait to meet Tiger Woods and kid him about Stanford. Black Lion Supreme says, I would go to Cal Berkeley to play basketball in those days. You could pay $5 and have access to the gym. Yep, true. The great regional sports center. And Joseph Binsman says, I'm happy because the whole field is healthy pretty much. Tiger is back. Dustin Johnson, is back after he had to pull out right before last year's Masters. Going to be fun. I could not agree more, Mr. Binsman. I could not agree more. Couldn't be fun. Couldn't be more fun. You're right about that. All right, it's 2:23 in the morning, and thank you all. And remember, be nice to everybody. Do not if you have a chance, take a look at what happened with Yasmin. I was talking about not Yasmin. Boy, there I go again. Take a look at what happened with Nassim Aghdam. NASIMAGHDAM. Don't let that happen. Be nice to everybody. Take care of everybody. And don't cheat the public. That's the lesson for today, folks. All right? Good night, everybody. Remember, CCIG Tiger Rugby, Hong Kong. Stay tuned for my report tomorrow. That's right. On Hong Kong Sevens Rugby. Woo! All right. Good night, everybody. I'll see you. Thanks again.